What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Friday stream here with ADSR. If you don't know me, my name is Tatro. I'm a music producer, content creator, educator, and I'm here every Friday on the ADSR stream talking about production concepts, things that you can do in your production process to make you a more productive producer and can make you more efficient, make you a better producer in general. Just these concepts are coming from feedback we get from you all on ADSR's Instagram, within the comment section on the ADSR channel, things that you all want to know about. And of course, today we're going to talk about getting up and running, getting the ideas out fast and not stalling in your process and keeping momentum in your creative process. Because sometimes we sit down and we stare at the blank project and we don't really know what to do, or it feels intimidating. And hopefully today I can talk about some ways, at least ways that things that I do to keep myself going, getting started, and not really letting myself get caught up in like overly criticizing myself or things like that. Hello to my friends in the chat, Tetsuro, Jeremy, Gio, Panda, Joseph, Stefan. Hello, thank you for being here today. I'm happy to have you all. If you have questions along the way in today's chat, of course, leave them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them. Not only that, if you're watching this later, leave a comment and let us know that. If you're watching this like post live, we would love to hear from you as well. Let us know what you think. And we're always looking for new production concepts to cover on this stream. So if there's things that are, really challenging you, whatever it may be, let us know a suggestion and maybe we can do a stream on it. That would be fun for sure. I'm going to be working in Ableton Live today, which is my DAW of choice. I'm going to start by talking about how I have Ableton Live set up so I can get off and running. And then I also have my launch key 37 here. I'm really just going to be using the key bed. So if you've got a MIDI keyboard or whatever, following along should not be that hard today. But hello, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope you're all ready for a great weekend of music production. I see Andrew. Thank you for being here. It's 4 a.m. in Germany. Yes, shout out to our friends around the world that it might be a little too early for them to watch live, but that's okay. Thank you for stopping in and saying hi anyway. So yeah, follow along today. I'm curious to know in chat if any of you have trouble just like getting started or getting ideas out, and all your thoughts on all that. Hope you've been enjoying all the streams from the past week. I know Alina Smith was on talking about music business and making pop music. And then we also did the music production challenge, the producer challenge on Wednesday, which happens every Wednesday. And we had some great entries this week. Make sure you're a part of the ADSR Discord because you can become a part of the community of producers and enter in our weekly production challenge. So great. Well, let's get into it today, right? So like I said, I'm working in Ableton Live. And the first step, I'm going to kill the background music. The first step, I would say, to getting off and running, getting off to a smooth start is just like eliminate any barriers that are going to get you caught up and slow you down, right? So what you're looking at right now, this Ableton template that you see is what happens when I open up Ableton Live. It loads with all these tracks, which it probably doesn't look like what your Ableton Live loads with because this is not the default. And the reason for this is because I set this as my default live set. And you can do this within the settings. Save live set as default set. So you make your project however you want it to load every single time. Set up your tracks. And then you just go save live set as default. And you can have it ready to go. So what you'll see right here is I've got a drum rack. And then this group of audio tracks in case I want to program drums manually on audio tracks. Empty audio track for some percussion, 2 samplers because I'm always sampling. I'm always throwing vocal samples into sampler, things like that. I've got Serum, which is a plugin I use a lot. Complete Control, so I have easy access to my native instruments plugins. Then 3 blank MIDI tracks for any other MIDI devices I might want to throw into this project. Then a bunch of audio tracks here at the end for stuff like my effects and risers and stuff. So all that being said, I've learned my own workflow. I kind of know what I get into when I start making music, and I just make it as easy as possible. As soon as I load Ableton Live, I don't have to make extra audio tracks. I don't have to load in Serum. It's already loaded. So that's step 1. Make things easier for yourself. I've also got my basic audio processing rack. I did a video of that on my channel, but it's just this really basic like EQ, reverb, and compressor that goes on every track, and I can turn it on and off, but it just loads by default. Hey, what's up, Elena? What's up, Kafa? Nice to see you as well. Cool, I didn't know that preset in Ableton Sessions. Yeah, so that's another good point, talking about Ableton Session View here, which is what I'm in, which is how I'm going to get started today. But if I hit Tab, we can go into the Arrangement View, which is the timeline. And actually, my default set loads on Arrangement View, which is the timeline, because I've been working more in this view. But today, we're going to get started in Session View, because this is a great way to get ideas out. Now, I don't know how you all normally start. There's a bunch of ways you can get started, chords, bass line, drums, or whatever, but I think today I'm just going to get started with drums. I'm just making that decision right away. And I'm going to use the tap tempo button. I want to make like a kind of fast-paced trap pop track. So that's another way of thing about getting started. You need to like have a clear vision of what you're sitting down to do. So there's no confusion. I'm not doing like an ambient down tempo track or anything. I want to do like a trap pop track. I'm hearing a tempo in my head, and I'm just going to tap it in on the tap tempo button, and that gives me about 155. Turn my metronome on, set my audio output so that I can actually hear it through my headphones, and you can all hear it. And then we've got our tempo set. Do that before you do anything, because that's going to be your basic guide. Now, since I said I'm going to start with drums, let's go ahead and put some drum samples in here. So make sure you have all your samples organized. Now, I wouldn't say I'm like the most organized person, but let me just plug my drive back in here. But I do keep all of my samples, including my samples from ADSR, in a sample packs folder on a little external drive. So if I go to sample packs, you can see I got a whole list here of packs to pull from. And I know I have one called, Nominated, which is like from ADSR. It's like a bunch of Grammy nominated artists. It all sounds inspired by those artists. And I know it's full of drum one shots. So I can just easily access that. This took no time at all, right? Of just diving in and finding the drum sounds that I want. Now you see I'm just flipping through all of these sounds, and I'm going to start just putting them in the drum rack. Now, right away, I'm not actually going to make a pattern yet, but what I will do is just decide on some sounds and throw them in. First, we're building up the kit, and I'm not spending too much time thinking about this, right? I'm going to just throw some little percussion in here. I don't even know what I'm going to play yet, but I know it's going to fit in this pop trap world, so that gives me a starting point at least. So let me just keep on going. Find a good snare sound. Number 1. That's fine. Easy, and then we're building up our kit. Very basic kit, like we're not reinventing the wheel, right? We don't have to think too hard about this. We know we need kick, snare, hi-hat, some percussion, maybe. You might not even want percussion. You just find a snappy, closed hi-hat. That one's actually pretty good. And then I'll find one contrasting one. I just want to have options. And the point of this is just getting up and running fast. Now, maybe one more snare to bounce off of would be helpful as well. Yeah, that's fine. That lives in the same world as number 1. Maybe it's too similar. So I'll do 17. That's good. Late to the party. Will this be available to watch from the beginning later on? Of course. Yes. But you're not that late. So welcome. Epic. LOL, my library is a mess. Yeah, I mean, my library is not necessarily clean either, but just the small step of putting all your sample packs, like external sample packs, in one folder, at least that gives me a little, like I can go into this folder and search for what I'm literally looking for. Okay, super simple, right? And then I have my tempo already, so I can start programming ideas. Now, I don't even know anything about this song yet, but I'm just going to get any and all ideas out in the session view right now. Meaning, I'm just going to start programming some very simple drum patterns. So let's record just an easy kick pattern. Cool. I'm going to quantize that because that last note was a little off. Now let's just program another drum pattern, completely unrelated. Easy. That's another quick 4-bar pattern. Hit quantize. I'm using the controller a lot here in conjunction with the mouse and keyboard, but like having quick access to a quantize button, a record button, it just makes things so easy. One thing I'm gonna do to get started right away is on my hi-hats. I don't want to have to play in my own hi-hat patterns. I'm just gonna make this easy and throw an arpeggiator on here. Eighth notes is probably fine. And we can even make a little bit of a stutter. Actually, gonna make sure that that is at the beginning. Actually, this one I won't put an arpeggiator on. We'll use that as an open hi-hat, but I'll do a duplicate of that other hi-hat. And we'll make it a stutter. And we'll pitch it up a little bit. We're just doing this fast. Easy. All right, so I'm going to forget about that drum pattern that I just made, and let's make one or two more with, we'll do hi-hat in this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Easy, another 4-bar pattern. Let's do one more. Beautiful. Now, I don't even know how I'm going to use these yet, but literally just not thinking about it, doing very basic patterns, and now we have 4 patterns we can choose from, including kick. I'm just going to move this kick over a little bit. Good afternoon, Xerix. Hello. All right, and then we've got this version, which has some snare. I'm going to do a little bit of editing on that sound, on that second snare sound. And we're going to just pitch it up. I'm going to bring the gain down so it's not so loud. There we go. So that's more of like a little bit of a fill snare rather than an actual backbeat snare. And I actually like this pattern a lot. I wish it had snare in it. So just going to duplicate this and overdub into it. So what I'm doing right now is just building up a bunch of beats that I can use in the track, even though I don't know how I'm going to use them yet. But we're going to add like probably a bass or an 808 next. So get ready for that. But like I said, I'm just going to add a simple snare to this clip that already exists. So I'm going to turn on the overdub button and let's record into it. 2, 3, 4. Easy. Not rocket science at all. So I've gone ahead and turned off the metronome. I'm going to turn off the metronome. I'm going to quantize just the snare pattern by highlighting the snares, hitting Command U. Easy. And we're there. Turn off the metronome. We've got our tempo and our feel. Hey, what's up, James Murley? Nice to see you. Stephen Scholl says, I rarely use drum rack because of the mixer routing inconveniences in FL. It's way faster to make it track by track. Yeah, I do both too. I find right now for the topic of this stream, for just getting ideas out, if that's something you're struggling with, it's a little bit easier to work in session view rather than arrangement. If I was working in arrangement, I would expand this out and build my own drums this way. But I'm trying to work fast, trying to see how fast you can get ideas out. So I alluded to this already, but let's go ahead and add a bass line, like an 808 or something. I know I have a saucy 808 at my fingertips here. So just go into the plugins, type in an 808. And like I said, I already have this MIDI track here. This is built for this. This is meant for me to just be ready to drop stuff into. I drop this 808 plugin right in. And we go down to the proper octave. Cool. Easy. Now I'm just gonna not spend too much time looking for presets, but I want something a tad cleaner than that. I think I like this dark preset. And the thing about this too is I've used this plugin fairly often now, and I kind of know which presets I like. So if you get familiar with the plugins you have, rather than get a new plugin and get a new plugin, you become faster at working for sure. Now you can see, I just put my hands on the keyboard and start playing something. And for ease of, to get everybody on the same level, right? Like I'm just gonna play an A minor today, which is just all the white keys. Same keys as C major, but we're starting on A minor because it's the relative minor. So, it's a lot easier to come up with an 808 line when we already have drums, right? And I'm just gonna add a little bit of glide to our 808, which is gonna make a really cool sound when I do this. And just going with literally the first idea that comes to my head, literally just ascending down the scale. Go for it. Let's record that. Just gonna loop that. So what's the principle here? The principle is I'm not sitting here like I could definitely be like, is this the bass line I want to play? Is this the 808 like that I want? Whatever. I'm not letting my brain go to that. I am only allowing myself to get ideas out as they come. So I'm not agonizing over an idea like an 808 line because I can just quickly go for it. So similarly to the drums, we're probably not going to want the same bass line or 808 line throughout our whole track. So why don't we just try to come up with one more thing? So I'm going to stop that clip that's playing and just try to come up with one different idea. All right, let's just lay that down. For real this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's fine, and I made mistakes during it, right? But guess what? We're not going to derail the whole process just because we make a mistake or we flub a note or something. We can always fix it later. So if I fold these MIDI notes, I see only the MIDI notes I played, and I can tell right away that this is the note that I meant to not play. Let's listen back to this pattern, see if there's anything I want to change. Yeah, I don't like that note. I probably want that to be a G. Now, folding is another way of going faster too. You see, if I unfold, I have access to every note. I can zoom in, but I still have access to the chromatic scale, every single note that's available. If I fold, I'm only looking at notes that I've already played. So if I do need to make a change, like I just did with this note, I'm locked into the notes that I've already played. So again, it's all about like not reinventing the wheel. I'm just gonna make this legato so they don't blend over each other. Actually, this needs to blend over each other for the glide. Easy. And now we not only have a bunch of drum patterns, but we also have 2 808 patterns. Which, by the way, I'm just going to go ahead and turn my grid back on. And make sure that this is lined up as a 2-bar pattern. Yes, it is. All right. So, by the way, when I go look at both of these patterns, like I said, we're playing in the A minor scale. So if I flip between these, this has less notes, but this is basically the same notes, just in a different pattern, right? We have A, F, G. We just kind of skip out on the E in the other pattern. So again, F, G, A. It's not brain surgery. Like, once you have an understanding of keys and things too, this makes it much, much easier. But even if you know one key, like if you know C major or A minor, they're relative to each other. If you know that and you're fluent in playing in it, you'll know how to achieve the type of chord progression, the type of sound that you want to go for. Oh, Samuel Messiah is here. Hello, hello. Thank you all. If you haven't tried Sample Manager to organize your samples, you should. Yes, check that out in chat. I have got to get on the Sample Manager. I had it, but then I think I got a new computer or something, and then I don't have it anymore. But yes, ADSR, I need to get on that. Ed says, I got to throw this comment in the last ADSR vid, but legit thanks, Tetro, for the highlight and roast on Wednesday. Ed, I'm glad you enjoyed the highlight of your track on Wednesday. If you all don't know, Ed entered the production challenge last week and was one of the finalists, top 3. So congrats to Ed. Really cool beat you made. Okay, I have my drum pattern. I have an 808. I have a few drum patterns, I should say. And now I want to add a synth. Well, instead of having to dig through all my plugins or whatever, I already have a Serum instance loaded here. So again, a lot of this is about speed. The more you let yourself agonize over making decisions, what plugin to use, what sound to use, what pattern to play, the more your process just gets derailed. So I'm trying to do this fast, even though I'm explaining it at the same time. But I'm not doing it fast just for the sake of the explanation. This is just kind of how I work. I don't want to agonize over ideas because we can always go back and make changes later, but let's get over the hump of making something first. So knowing your sound library, right? I know that I have this amazing Ariana Grande inspired pack by Ghost Project from the ADSR store. And it kind of fits the vibe of what I want. I know that I'm making a trap kind of hip hop track. So that means I'm probably not going to choose from my lo-fi libraries, or I'm probably not going to use the basic Serum presets, because many of these lean more towards like harsher, like EDM kind of stuff. So I'm going to focus my attention where I know that there's sounds that I will actually use, and staying within a particular pack is an easier way to kind of hone. Because like, look at this library. Like, I have all these user packs with all these presets. And then I have the entirety of the default library with all these presets. So if I get caught up in trying to go through every single preset within Serum, like, that's a lost cause at that point. So I might as well hone it and find a pack that I know that I like, that lives in the world that I'm trying to make a track in, and work from there, you know? This sound fits perfectly. Now it's just about coming up with the idea, and I might try a bunch of things, but we'll see what works. So this is already taking me longer than I would like to take, but I know that this brighter thing that I was playing before was not working. So I'll do something that maybe just follows the 808 bass line a little more. All right, that was fine. That's what I want to play. I'm not going to say it's an amazing idea, but it's simple enough and it works. But I didn't hit record. So use the tools of your DAW in your workflow. Use the tools of the DAW and what the DAW gives you to your advantage is what I want to say. So I didn't hit record on that. I could just run it back and try to remember exactly what I played and play it back. I could probably do that. But to save time, we have capture MIDI. Literally just recorded it in the background, and when I want it, just push the capture button. And there we go. It's there. Let's go ahead and quantize. And again, I'm just going to keep going back to this idea of not reinventing the wheel and not making it brain surgery, like not overcomplicating. This pattern, dun, 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 dun. Pay attention to that. That is like literally the same thing that the 808 does. So you should, in the music that you listen to, you should start paying attention to how many musical ideas are the same across different instruments, or like how many musical ideas kind of play off of each other. Because these are essentially doing the same thing and they lock in really well, in my opinion. All that said, we're going to keep the idea going of like, okay, that's one idea, but let's come up with another idea. And I'll actually just add to this. And I literally just want to do that repeated thing. That's too high. Easy. So I'm just going to record on top of that. The whole thing with working in session view here is I haven't even decided on a track structure. And I think about like in 5 or 10 minutes, we'll start putting this on arrangement view and we'll see how all this work that we're putting in session view is really going to pay off in the end. So what did I say I was going to do? Oh yeah, we have overdub record on. I'm just going to record that like repeated note on top of this pattern that I already have. Notice that I made a duplicate so that I can have both. Easy. Again, not brain surgery, not trying to be a virtuoso here on the keyboard, literally just trying to play the simple idea that works. Easy. Now, as I'm going, I find it impossible to not like mix as I go. So in this instance, like the hi-hats are just coming through a little harsh for me. So I'll just make a quick change and just bring it down. But having said that, I'm not really focused on mixing right now at all. I'll make little adjustments, but mixing and stuff is something that comes way later. So if you find yourself getting caught up in a stage of the process that you're not actually in, it's like a red flag. Don't spend too much time. In this instance, I'm like, okay, the hi-hat's a little loud. Let me just go in and make that slight change. I'm done. I'm not like, okay, now let me EQ the kick. Let me pan things. I'm not there yet. That's not what I'm doing right now. So being conscious of like what stage of the music making process are you actually in before you get lost in the sauce of, okay, you've come up with drums, a synth, and an 808, and now you're like, okay, time to mix. Like, no, it's not quite time for that yet. Okay. You know, I like to add a vocal sample to my tracks. And what I'll say is, even as I say that, some of you know me and have watched me do streams before, and you all know that I really like to add vocal samples to my tracks. But for you, in your workflow or your style, you have your own things that you like, right? Like maybe you really like to use a saw synth, a hyper saw, or like whatever it may be. That also comes down to understanding yourself and what you do as a producer. That's intense. But since I know, like that's part of my style. It's like when you play in a rock band, you know that there's electric guitar, electric bass, a drummer, and a singer for the most part, and add on whatever you want to that. But for me, like as a producer, I know for many of my for much of my music like this, I probably want to add a vocal sample. I'll start using this chop. That's actually pretty cool. I'm going to normalize it so it's loud, and let's see if it's in key. It's not. So this is sometimes this derails me personally, because if I have to get lost in the sauce in transposing something and I can't do it quickly, which that was really easy. So since it was, I'm gonna keep going with it. And again, not getting lost in the sauce of mixing, but when I hear this, I realize right away that there's way too much low frequency in there. It's gonna make it muddy. So having this at my fingertips, the basic audio processing rack, makes it 10 times better because I just quickly sweep out lows. So let me just record this little vocal chop here. Falls a little out of time, I feel. So I think what instead I'll do is I'm going to ditch that and I'm going to just chop it myself. And then let's do that. Easy. It's not perfect at all, but I think I can add a little bit of reverb to it and make it sound a little more natural. Again, reverb right here in my rack already. I'm not adding it in. Let me do a quick edit actually. So give me this vocal chop, put it here. And I'm just gonna solo this, throw the metronome on, and try to put this in time. Just throwing in warp markers. This is gonna make things much easier for me. And I only want that first bar, so I am going to now, crop that that 1 bar loop, I should say. Now that it's in time, crop. And then I'm going to throw this back into the simpler now that I've kind of warped it and retimed it. Flatten it, freeze it, and then flatten it. And then let's just repeat that process, but with this chop now. Because it's in time, or it should be. And I'm going to delete the pattern I played, delete the original sample, and we could do that again. So that also comes down to just being able to be fast. Easy. Let's record that. 2, 3, 4. Easy. What's my line of the day, right? It's not brain surgery. What we see happening in this top line of this synth, playing the single note and then dipping down to the G, playing the same note and then jumping up to that B. Looking at the vocal sample, we're doing basically the same thing here. Are you slicing the vocal? Yes, I'm slicing the vocal, just that first half. Threw it into a simpler, and there we go. Now, orchestration is another part of this thing. You have to be asking yourself, what is necessary? Like, what part of this, like, what's missing? What instrument am I missing? I talked about a rock band earlier, drums, guitar, bass, vocalist, those basic core instruments. In my beat, what am I missing? I have drums. I've got this vocal sample, which is almost taking the place of like a pad sound almost. I've got my 808, which is my bass line, and I've got a top synth. So what I'm thinking is maybe there's room for something in the middle, like maybe like a pad sound or something. Not only that, but I have this other bass line. That I could probably build another synth line off of. So you see what I did here is I just duplicated Serum. Because that's easy enough. And I can stay in this pack with these sounds. I'm not kind of sure what sounds I want yet, but let's just try. I feel like that could work, but it's just not hitting for me. But I'm gonna keep it in mind. This isn't fitting in the atmosphere. I think what it is it doesn't have reverb and everything else kind of does. And maybe I could put a little delay on it as well. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. No, I don't know if it needs delay though. I think this works. Let's just go for it. Again, let's not reinvent the wheel and let's just record. Wrong note for sure. We'll fix the timing, right? We know that I played that a little off, but I'm not here doing a performance, right? I think make sure your insecurities and stuff are in check too while you're creating. I think a lot of people get caught up in what do other producers think of them in their process, and that is a trap to discipline yourself out of really quick, because you don't have to play stuff perfectly every time. You're not doing a performance. You're sitting in the studio trying to come up with ideas. If you strive to do something more and more like perfectly every time, you're just wasting time for yourself. Like, I know that I could play that in time, but in that moment I didn't. I'm not gonna stop and derail the process just to do it, because I think I should be able to. Like, whatever, it's whatever. Just coming up with ideas as fast as possible. Now, since this aligns really well with this bass line, I'm gonna actually program this bass line in here and see how it sounds. So I'm literally taking the musical idea from the bass line. Easy. Copy these notes over here. I don't bother with timing when I'm in search mode. Search mode is a good way to describe it, Tiny Bites, like searching for that right idea, like where is it? I'm just going to switch this up and play a B here. So this definitely sounds like a type of, this is also like a very minimal. All right, we've got that synth line down, but I want to know if I can use this synth with this other bass line. I won't use that same synth line, but now that we've included that instrument, let's see if we can just find a simple thing to play with. William C. Beckham, what's up? Yeah, I don't think it really works with the other sounds. I'm gonna add one more sound, probably. I think it's could still use a single other sound. I don't know what it is yet, but I think we have space for something else, like a pad. Then we're going to take these ideas that we just built up and we're going to get them on the timeline. And you're going to see that it is possible in 1 hour to come up with a very, it's a basic beat, but it's got all the things that we really need, you know? It got us started, it got us kickstarted, and we can build on top of this now. I'm gonna kill the vocal sample for now. Let's do way more reverb on this. And let's make it a high reverb. Just want to point out again that I'm not a piano virtuoso, and you'll see that I barely move my hands, especially when I flub a note like that. It's easy. Not brain surgery. It's not rocket science, nor is it rocket surgery, right, chat? Everybody, I hope you're having a good time on stream today. If it's your first ADSR stream, let us know in the chat. We'd love to hear from you and welcome you. And if you're, always here holding it down in the ADSR gang, thank you for that. Appreciate it. We're here every Friday. I'm here every Friday doing production concepts. We also do a producer challenge every Wednesday, and there's lots of other amazing live streams that happen throughout the week. I saw a good question in chat from Michael Olson, who said, is there any reason this workflow can or can't be used in a Reason DAW? I don't know anything about Reason, but I think a lot of the core music making stuff we're talking about today is transferable to any DAW. You just need to find ways in your particular DAW. The mechanical thing that is aiding me is this kind of looping workflow where I can build up a bunch of loops, and I build up a bunch of loops and I'm not quite working on a timeline yet. Some DAWs don't have that capability, but you could loop on your timeline regardless. So I think most of the music making concepts here today are transferable, I believe. Okay, we now have drums, a bunch of drum patterns, vocal sample, synth, a few synths, and a bass line, 808 bass line. And we've got about 15 minutes left in today's stream. So now we're stuck in the loop, right? If you walked away from this project right now, chances are you're never finishing this beat. You're never getting this idea out there. This beat will never see the light of day unless you're very disciplined and you're going to come back to it. If you were just going to work on something for 1 hour, I highly suggest you take this last 20, 15 minutes, whatever it may be, and get everything on the timeline. Arjun says, hey, ADSR, could you give some help as the volume levels for drum levels? What should be the loudest and lowest as sort of a tier list? Well, we can talk about that in a future stream. However, right now, you don't even need to focus on that. We're not even talking about mixing right now. And you can see with all my drums, the only slight adjustment I made was I brought my hi-hat down a little bit. That's it. Everything else will come later. Mixing is way down the road. Until you have your track fleshed out on the timeline, try to not get stuck in the idea of like mixing, because that's just going to derail you. But okay, you're stuck in the loop. So what do? Well, in Ableton Live, it's not that serious, right? We have all these drum loops. I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to drag them onto the timeline. And actually now, let's completely work on the timeline. I'm going to select all my loops, hit tab, and drag them all in. But what I'm going to do is drag them over here to like bar 25. Doesn't matter, whatever. Just going to drag them along further in the timeline so that I don't have to use them right away. We'll build up to them. This is kind of like a scrap pile over here, and we'll pull from it as we need it. So now we're on the timeline. I'm hitting stop, and we're listening to all this over here. We're not listening to the session loops anymore. And I think my vision right now is actually to start with this vocal loop. All right, and now we need a kick pattern. I'm thinking of this in a standard sort of song structure kind of way, where we have an 8-bar intro. Something's going to change every 4 bars. Instead of keeping this vocal sample the same, why don't we try something a little different and bring it down an octave. The other thing we can start to do is like maybe we could add some effects. Let's just add a chorus to this really quick. So this is where if we never got to the timeline, certain ideas wouldn't come out. But here I'm hearing a nice chorus. And not only that, what if we layered these so it was high octave and low octave at the same time? Let me bring this one back high. No, I don't like it. I only want the low one. So let's keep that. We got the drums going there. This is essentially our first verse. Let me see if I can actually mix this. Not mix it, warp it a little differently. Again, I feel myself getting lost in the sauce here on this idea, and I'm not going to let it derail my process. Yeah. All right. So just cutting bad ideas quickly, trying like experimenting, but if it like takes too much effort to work, I'm just going to bail from it. So I'm definitely leaving room for a vocalist here. Let me get the hi-hat version here. And we'll keep that going, but now we'll introduce our first 808 pattern that we built. Remember, we already did the work. We already made the musical ideas. I actually don't love that drum pattern, so I'll probably change it. Yeah, I must have a simpler one. Move that over. Let me just check these. Yeah, it's this last one. Yep. Keeping things simple and rolling. Drunk Bishop says, dang, I'm late. That's okay. You can rewind and watch from the beginning. Yeah, James Marley's talking about the ways to get into the arrangement view. You could, of course, be in session view and record into arrangement view and launch these clips accordingly. But unless I'm doing a performance, I don't really find a need to do that. I just drag the clips over and I want a little more freedom. I don't want to be locked into a performance. I'm just moving my scrap pile over that we talked about over. All right, we also have synths to introduce here. Where is this? Let me see what synths I have. Not that one yet. Maybe that one. Maybe this one. Yeah. So to keep things interesting, when that hi-hat comes in, let's also introduce this synth. Here it goes. So again, this is like we're full on in verse mode. Now I really like that kick drum there. Let me just duplicate that. And now let's go into our second section, which we've already built a bass line for, or an 808 line. Now, one thing I like about this pattern is that top note thing, the top note repeated thing we made, but I don't want to have all these extra notes at the bottom. So let me just duplicate this clip. I'm going to keep that B though. Just delete all these extra notes that I don't want. Oops, I hit enter instead of delete. Select these notes, delete them. Easy. So now I can carry this over. It's always nice when you're changing sections of a song to carry some sounds over. All right, we've prepared for this. We have patterns ready for this. Now this comes in super aggressively, right? Not super aggressively, but it just sounds a little bit out of place. Let's double this section, by the way. I'm just gonna highlight it and hit duplicate. Very simple thing we can do, and we only get to this point when we're working on the timeline really, is do a filter. Filter. Where is my auto filter? Drop that in. And let's just very easily just turn it on. We'll go to automation mode, turn it off, and then automate it to turn on for this. And then we're going to automate this frequency, and it's going to go from 0 and work its way up. Probably won't start at true 0 because I want to hear it come in a little bit. There we go. And the only thing we don't have right now are transitional sounds, but we can work that in a moment. Now, even though we're on the timeline, our playing time is not over. Oh, let me make sure only one of my tracks is armed. We have this snare already. On my track. Yeah, so I can very easily add a snare pattern to this. And let me show you what I'm going to do. Actually, I have an idea, but I want to get this out first. So I'm going to loop these brackets, not loop these brackets, but only punch in and record within the brackets. And let's record on top of this. 2, 3, 4. This sounds really weak right now. I'm aware of that. We're gonna fix it in a minute. Okay, first things first is that hi-hat was way too loud. Let me just bring down the velocity and see if it helps with that. Second thing second is that snare sounds like super weak in comparison to everything else. And I also don't know why it got rid of my kick pattern, but it did. I've been having, I don't know if it's me, if I just don't understand what's going on, but I'll turn on overdub and it won't overdub. It'll actually just like straight up record it. Okay, but anyway, I want a new sample. I want a clap. And I promise by the end of this, we're so close to having like a normal like song structure, like the main parts of the song that we need. It's just gonna be easy. So somebody please give me a clap. Anybody. Trap and soul R&B, that should have something. You know, I'd rather, if people making sample packs out there, I would rather always have a one-shot folder rather than construction kits. I don't know why. Do you guys find yourselves using single one-shot samples or construction kits more? I don't know why, but like, I'm just not always interested in the stems. I just want to grab a simple one-shot pattern, one-shot sample. That's all I want. Construction kits. And where did the nominated thing go? There we are. But yeah, drum one shots is the way to go. It makes it way easier. So all I'm going to do to this drum rack is add an extra sample in here and throw a reverb on it. So I have like a more exciting snare. So now, the reason I was saying I know this sounds weak, I just want to get the idea out, is because I know that I can insert this later. So now I can go and put that snare pattern that I already played, but put it on that snare that I just added. Find that. There it is. This is, of course, not the section I want to do this in, but this is. All right, and then let's just do a simple. Oh, actually, that might be a fun pattern to insert there. Not to just derail what I just did, but let me try this pattern here. See, I was trying to reinvent the wheel, even though I've already done some stuff. I think that actually works. All right, and then I think we insert this. Yep, and then that's our transition into what could be a hook. Basically, we can just take the patterns that we already built here, introduce this new synth, go back to our old bass line. Like we have that new synth on top, right? And we go back to our like basic drum pattern. But we take that basic drum pattern, we add that super reverby clap. And now it's like just a slightly more epic version of the beat we already made. And of course, we could spice this up and add more layers to it. I think the thing that would be missing from here would be like risers and things like that. Because we don't really get that much of a transition there. So let's just do a quick drop right there on the last beat before that hook. And what we have now from that little fast session is some very basic elements for what would be a song. We have an 8-bar intro. We have a 16-bar verse right here. Then we have something like a 16-bar pre-chorus. And then what we have here is essentially a 16-bar hook that kind of uses the same ideas. Now we could depart and add more musical ideas, but in an hour session, you can see how getting your ideas out fast, working in this kind of loop view where you're not even thinking about structure, you're just thinking about getting patterns out and getting ideas out. Thinking about what elements you're adding, what instruments. Getting that out fast leads you to getting on the timeline faster. And within 1 solid hour, because you know I even did a little intro and stuff today, we didn't do a full hour of making the beat yet. You can see that you can just get this stuff out. And of course, I might be like, oh, I don't like that snare sound anymore. But now the pattern is done. So like, even if I'm like, let me go add a different snare sound, and even if I want to choose like from a different pack, cool, I want to change the snare sound. And the snare comes in here. Let me just go in and just, the pattern is there. So I didn't agonize over that snare sound earlier because I just wanted to get the sound out. But now that I have the pattern done, I can go back and think about that later. Like, do I like that snare sound? Do I want a new snare sound? These are all questions you can ask. Anything can be swapped now. It's all MIDI, right? I can swap these synth sounds. You go in now and you add these transitions. which I'm going to try to just do this fast because I don't know if these will necessarily work. That is a lot. These are pretty intense. Let's just try that. Let's try that going in. And I've got my audio track here all ready to go. So all I have to really do is check the levels. Let's do this. Yeah, that's fine. Boom. And now we've got these transitions. Just literally going into my... That's fine. There we go. And then we're just building. We're building, we're building, we're building. This one's a long stem. I don't want that. That one we already used. But you get the point, right? Now we're gluing these sections together that might not have sounded like they belong together. And then, because if I had got myself thinking about that earlier, I would have totally derailed. But now that I have this section, these sections laid out, and you guys know how song sections work, right? It goes verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and then what do? We pretty much repeat that. Duplicate your time. Now we're at 2 minutes, 30 seconds. This is almost starting to look like a finished track. But of course, we'll go in and add some things on top, add new elements to the repeated sections on later. But we got the backbone out. It's out. It's done. And now the fun can begin. You can start adding more things, introduce new synths, come up with a bridge section that totally departs from this. But you can do this in an hour. You can do this in less than an hour. Like, imagine if you didn't have to sit here and talk to the camera and explain what you were doing. Like, this is a 30 to 45 minute to an hour long process, I think. So what was like the basic lesson of today, I guess, is like, don't overcomplicate your process. Don't make things, it's not brain surgery. Take the pressure off when you're coming up with ideas. You don't need to play things in perfectly. Things can be fixed after. And compartmentalize your process, right? If you're just coming up with ideas, just come up with ideas. Don't worry about your mix. Don't get caught up too much in sound selection because you can change it later. And don't worry about your arrangement or your timeline yet. Worry about that later. Then when it comes time, you have enough ideas and you've got all your loops ready to go. Then get on the timeline. Start thinking about arrangement. Don't get lost in Loopsville, says James Murley. Yes. That's it for today. I hope that was helpful. Sounds and packs that I used today, including serum presets, are all available on the ADSR store, so you should check that out. It's the weekend. Maybe you want to get yourself some new sounds to get inspired. And if you do take some of this advice, let us know in a comment. Let us know, like tweet at ADSR, whatever you got to do. Just let us know that you're finding it helpful and that you're in on these production concepts. More production concepts coming for you from me. I actually have to be away next week, so I believe there will be a sub for me on Wednesday and on Friday next week. But nonetheless, it's going to be an amazing stream. You know, there's a lot of amazing presenters on this channel, so you want to make sure you're subscribed and notifications on so you don't miss a future production stream, and you can keep leveling up your production skills. You can find my channel, youtube.com/Taetro, Taetro. I just put up a cool lo-fi beat making tutorial today. It's actually a first of a 3-part series. So if you want to head over to my channel after this and watch a deeper dive into getting started, really getting into the nitty-gritty uncut process of it, it's only part 1. But if you want to watch that or watch it this weekend, check out my channel, give it a sub. I hope you enjoyed today's stream. Thanks so much, Common Beats, for stopping by the way. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. Mariki messages, thank you. Stefan, William, CEO, James Murley. I know I'm missing some people. Tiny Bites. Hello, everybody. Thanks so much. Tell your friends about the channel. Join the Discord server because the party continues on. But I really appreciate you all. This has been Tatro for ADSR. Have a good one. Go make some music this weekend.